All right, we are back yet for another episode of Know Your Builder. It's 2025, so Happy New Year to everyone. I'm here joined by Christoph, doing this series where we interview builders from the different ecosystems that we cover. And today we're joined by Gautham, the co-founder of Polynomial. Gautham, so nice to have you on the show.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
All right, let's dive right into it, and I want to know more about, obviously, about you, but also about Polynomial, what it is, how it works, how it came to be. So, do a quick intro about yourself and how you came to be the co-founder of Polynomial, and then dive straight into Polynomial itself.
Yeah, I'm yeah, so I've been in crypto since 2017, just in a hackathon or something like that. And primarily I've been a user of DeFi, mostly during DeFi summer and all. And we thought like we could make better stuff than this. So that's primarily how we started building. And our thesis was very simple that we ourselves and me and my co-founders, we like DeFi, like we like the idea of like making a new financial system and things like that. So on that angle, like typically like in every financial system, the bigger sector is always the derivatives on top of the financial system. So we started like let's explore like what we can build on top of derivatives, and that's how we like started building on Polynomial. So in 2021 we went to a hackathon by it global, and we hacked for a month, and we were one of the finalists, and then we raised some money, and then we finally built Polynomial. And yes, so initially it was an option protocol. Over time we upgraded, we did structured products over time, and then finally like the current stage of what Polynomial is, which is a perp exchange plus a layer 2, and primarily the layer 2. So what we realized is that for building things like derivatives, which you cannot actually build on an L1, you kind of have to have like specialized infrastructure, and so that you don't obviously compete with general L1s and things like that, but also like you can look at like derivatives, like you can look at like other platforms like DYDX, Hyperliquid. All of them work well when you're in an isolated environment. So the thesis kind of is like proven by like over time. And so that's kind of like how we started Polynomial and what it does. So the primary thing is like we have this liquidity layer, and which is like backing all the derivatives trades. And currently we have a per protocol which we built, but in future this liquidity layer can be used across multiple products, and which we will like doing like slowly. But that's like the main goal of like Polynomial and how we have built over time.
Okay, and what are your backgrounds? And I'm asking because I've always had like mad respect for people building things like DEXs because my understanding you need to know how to develop it and build it, the actual product and the code behind it, but you also need to understand how derivatives and markets and everything work.
I think it that's why you have co-founders, right? Like I was a machine learning engineer way before AI agents were a thing. So my background is mostly in like math and those kind of programming and all. And one of my other co-founder, he used to work in InstaDapp, and he used to also work in Citibank. So he has like a banking and like a DeFi experience. And my third co-founder, like he is also a software engineer, but he used to like trade options and all a lot. So like in India, like a lot of people, we were from India, so like a lot of people trade options because Indian option market is quite big. So like derivatives, like they're just naturally what you say, like we are like users who became like founders because we just wanted to make something very good.
Okay, awesome. Didn't know India was big on options. That's nice to hear. All right, so and you built Polynomial. Was it first that you started building like the trading part of Polynomial? Like you mentioned it was an auction market initially, and then as you started building it out, you realized, hey, we need our own like infrastructure for that. So that came to be like Polynomial Chain, or was it? How did like you came to the conclusion that didn't just being on Optimism, for example, was enough, or how that came to be the decision?
I think it's like primarily like you just want to make something you want to use. So that has been always been the North Star metric. So options in crypto don't really work very well, right? And that was like I would say like blessing and disguise. Like we initially didn't, we thought like it would work like really big, it will grow insanely huge. But the thing is, the rate of growth for perps have been much bigger, but we didn't know that. And initially we started to make like an option AMM, and we launched it on testnet, and we realized like nobody's making money out of this. So we switched, we quickly like moved to like structured products. There was this option walls just like kind of like trending on that time. So we initially, when we launched on Optimism, we launched a structured product where you have like selling options to an AMM on chain, which was Lyra. So it was like the first fully on chain, like an option structured product world. And we built it. And the issue was like, it was very hard for us to scale. Like we could get more users, we could get more TVL, but we couldn't sell the options. And it was like at a certain point, it doesn't make sense as a risk wise. So we stopped like increasing the TVL, and we were just stuck in like a few millions in TVLs. And so we couldn't like figure it out. So it made natural sense for us to like move to something that has better product market for crypto. And when you look at the broader crypto landscape, there are two products that have like very good product market fit. One is perps and the other one is stablecoins. And perps are very big. Like I think daily volumes is in hundreds of billions, right? And only 2 to 3% of it is still on chain. And since like recently, as you've seen, like sex to dex ratio for spot is like 20%, right? And this is still like 2 or 3%. So it has a lot more room for improvement, and it is like a much big market. And the market has already, like everybody knows that it is going to be big, but nobody has went out and actually built it. And right now, like when we started, like we built early version, like nobody was there, but there is a lot more competition now. But I guess that's a good sign that like, it's like a really good market. And we initially launched our perp on in 2000, like last year. And when we launched on Optimism and Optimism mainnet itself. But the thing that we realized was like when you build on a general L2, like there were like a lot of things that we learned. And one of the things we learned is like when we build on a general L2, one is like you don't have a lot of control over the infrastructure, right? And so gas spikes, all these things like affect people. Like you can essentially, like a person can get liquidated just because the gas spiked. And the gas spiked maybe because there is an NFT mint or some random thing that nobody like non-financial thing, right?
How does that?
And
Sorry to interrupt. So, I'm generally curious because I trade as well. I'm a kind of like the L2B degen, and I wanted to trade more on on chain, not just on centralized exchanges. How would you get liquidated on a position if the gas spikes?
so essentially it's like this, right? You can have this thing where so when you're liquidating a person, you basically give a tip,
Yeah.
and then you look at the position, and then you don't want a bad debt, right? Like you have a buffer. So because of gas price increasing, this price can push up a little bit. And what can happen is, suppose you are very highly leveraged, and which a lot of crypto people are at 50x or something, a small $1 difference can break your heart, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay, so it's
that is like
basically
very
the
small.
buffer to pay the fees can increase. Okay, yeah,
Yes.
that's actually makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
whereas in a centralized exchange, you wouldn't have that.
Yes, and it went to like 15 $20 in OP. We kind of like made a like the version that we have at the moment. Like after we built on OP, we actually like deployed it on base. And in base also, like it was very high. So we were like, okay, it doesn't make sense. And so we went and we were like, well, let's just make our own chain. That would be like much better because our users want this. And over time, like it gives you advantage, right? Like you can make it like your sequencer also specific. Like you give, like you're seen with like Unichain, right? Like they are like working with flashbots and TE, and they're like, you can do those kind of stuff. So we can make it like prioritize liquidations, all those kind of stuff. So it seemed more future proof to build a chain. And it also made sense for this particular use case that for perps, yeah.
And I got a question. Before you decided to spin off your own chain, you decided to go to Optimism, and I'm curious, like, what was the decision process there? Like, what made you decide to go to Optimism? What was so special about Optimism that you chose Optimism to build on? And how do you see Optimism from your perspective?
I mean, like when we first made our product, there were only two L2s, Arbitrum and Optimism. And at that time, like both were very similar. And we primarily chose at that time because we were like working with synthetics at that time, and synthetics was an optimism. That's primarily like how we started into like in the optimism ecosystem. We could have gone multi-chain, but uh like from our thesis, it made more sense to just work at a single place, build like a good product, reach a product market fit, and then just expand. But that didn't happen for any of the things that we built before. So we stayed in optimism, and over time we liked it a lot because generally like the RPGF is pretty good. Like, we can actually incentivize users and all those kind of stuff. So that's pretty decent in my opinion. But otherwise, like the stack is also well tested, right? Like at least for the chain specific thing, it was like very clear that OP is much better than ARP or any other stack because it's more mature. Like there is like base, you have so many other chains, and they have like a much clearer path. So that's why like we went with OP stack. So,
And from your perspective, I'm curious, like how do you see super chain? Like Optimism evolved into the super chain, and there are all those different chains right now, like you mentioned, Base, Unichain, Inc. That just launched. How do you see this environment right now, and how do you see Polynomial fit into this environment?
I I am a big believer that like you don't want an Ethereum on top of Ethereum as an L2, right? Like that's kind of like how like the early OP and the ARB was. Like it's like a chain where you're doing essentially the same thing. I think L2 should have like a particular purpose, right? Like base is more like Coinbase's gateway, and the similar for like all these exchange chains. And I am also like obviously I believe a lot in like app chain thesis and like having special purpose chains, right? Like how Unichain is where it is more for trading AMM, right? Like a lot of times a lot of activity on this chain is just arbitraging AMMs, right? Like you are essentially just fixing the prices with every exchange, and a lot of gas is like spent. So if you like isolate that behavior out, you don't have to like spend a lot of time and energy on that, right? So similarly, like I think like specific mission driven or like it can be ideology, but it should have like a generally a thesis in my opinion. Otherwise what happens is if you are building in a app specific chain and sorry, a general purpose chain, and then you build something on top of it, the value also like degrades a lot even for the token as well, right? If you take a look at something like GMX, right? Like it did kind of like similar fees as Hyperliquid, and Hyperliquid is valued like 30, 40, 50 times more than that, right? So like the market also understands that the value accrual is more in the base layer. And so I think like there will be a shift over time where a lot of these apps who can build their own ecosystems will slowly make their own L2s. And I think like that is like the broader way, like I think how it's going to be. But I don't think it's going to be like a single app, like a Cosmos vision, what it was, or it would be like a general theme would be there. And I think for us, the theme is derivatives. For Unichain, it is like that. And that's kind of how I think.
So let me circle back to the question, like why did you decide to build your own L2? You already mentioned the fees and the advantage of being in control of all the parameters of your own chain. You also mentioned the value accrual, the base layer. Are there any other reasons why you decided to build your own chain? And also, I want to understand, like, what are the challenges when building your own chain? Because we already discussed advantages. So, and I would like to dig deeper into that, but also if you could mention any challenges that you face while doing that.
And before you go, I want to like piggyback on that question. And if my understanding is that Polynomial Chain is a member of the super chain, no?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm curious, like one of the reasons you mentioned building your own chain is that you can be more of control of like all the aspects of it. Doesn't being a member of the super chain limit some aspects of that, or at least in terms of like future proofing it?
I think it's also for the user, right? Like if like polynomial is like much lower TVL, and like we don't have like a big VC backing us. So being part of something like Superchain gives the user like a guarantee that it's not a rug pull. right? I think that is something that people want to make sure that it is like kind of safe and secure, right? I think that is more of the thing. And another thing I would say, like being part of super chain is like the the future possibility of like working in an environment where like I don't know if you have noticed, there is this new super ERC20 standard. So essentially, like you mint on one chain and you burn. So I think like bridging between these silos, like I think like super chain is one, then CK Sync is making one. This is going to be like really easy. And for us, I think Base, Kraken, these are like big exchanges. So it makes onboarding a lot easier, I think. And that I think is a big advantage, right? Like
Yeah,
over time.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. All right. We've talked a little bit about the, what you're building and the decisions behind building it on Optimism. I think it would be a good time now to show what you're building. I know like a chain is a more abstract thing, you can't really show it, but you do have polynomial trade, like the app, the product.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Let me share. So this is, can you share? See my
yeah,
screen?
yeah, that's a LTV page for polynomial.
How do we?
All right,
Okay. So
yeah, we can see.
Okay, so yeah, so we are like a chain basically for trading derivatives. So we have mainly two things. One is staking, and the other one is trading. And so the one thing that we wanted to do is like we want to so when a person is trading on Polynomial, they are on the other side counterparty to this LP pool. So we have like multiple assets like USDC, SDAI, SUSD, and USD 0 plus plus. So this is one good thing about building your own chain. So this USD 0 plus plus, it's not there in any other chain. So we actually like tap into the liquidity directly from mainnet. So we can like make bridging integrations ourselves. So people get like usual rewards and all those things. So when a person places a trade, they collect fees. So these LP pool collect fees. So I can show you like the data and how it works and all. But it's basically like you stake a bunch of money and you collect trading fees, liquidation fees, all that things. And we also have like a decent like OP grant which we got from Optimisms, which we also like use it to incentivize people. So this is essentially the thing, and you have like some small things like inviting and all those things. And then the main part of our product is the trading part. And so the staking is pretty
Before you
simple.
get
You
into
just
the trading, I got a
uh,
question for the staking, I think. So you can provide liquid, like stake your liquidity on Polynomial to get an APR. Like if you go to the
yeah, yeah. You can deposit from any chain. Like over here, you can see like I can deposit from Arbitrum, and I
okay,
can
the
just sign
APRs
and
are the page you showed previously.
yes,
Okay, wow, really
and
decent APRs.
yeah, it is
It,
pretty decent.
it's in part, right now you're doing like a marketing thing, but at the same time you're doing a sales pitch to me personally because I always look for different things to explore and try out.
So you can see over here, I am doing a transaction. So one cool thing is like I'm depositing from Arbitrum. So we did this thing in the UX level where like a user can come from any chain. So you can see like a user deposited on Arbitrum. I
Okay.
mean, I just deposited from Arbitrum and it will like auto deposit. So we kind of like remove that friction. Obviously, there is a small delay due to bridging, but it's
Yeah.
not that
So you don't
time
have to
consuming.
go to a bridge the asset
Yeah,
and then deposit. Ah,
don't
that's
have to do anything. You just have to come and you just use it. And I think it takes like less than a minute, but yes. So
yeah.
that's the main thing. And yes, the APR is pretty decent, but you can hover over it. Like for example, SUSD. So you can in these assets like SUSD intrinsically have like 9% APR, and then we have 8%, and then the OP rewards are also there. So they stack up for some tokens.
Okay.
And it all varies. Like I think like trading a lot of people got liquidated during the last few, like, few days. So the trading APR is a bit lower, but it was also like, it becomes pretty good, like during some times, but it's here and there all the time.
Yeah.
But over time, it has been like generally positive and has been quite good. So I think it deposited. Wait, let me just check. Yeah. So my deposit happened. So you can see over here.
Nice. Yeah.
uh, RTI destination transaction. So in our scanner, you can see like it happened. So it makes it like smooth. I think that is one thing like a lot of people say, like when you make your own chain, the UX becomes really bad. It doesn't have to be.
Mhm.
You can make it look like it's on every chain. So I think that is
Yeah,
good
I
idea.
think like ideally I would want to see all apps be like that. Like I want to deposit to the app. I don't want to think about where I have them on. Like just click the button. I have them on Arbitrum or on Base or on Optimism. Just want to deposit from there, and I shouldn't have to go to a bridge and do that manually.
By the
Yeah.
way, is this smooth experience something that you built internally, or did you use something to do it?
Yeah, like bridging obviously is done with Socket. So they are like the provider that we work with on the bridging side. It's a little bit like from our side, like Socket out of the box, I guess bridges. We also like did this like hook on the chain where like if you deposit into staking, you you bridge and then automatically deposit. But it's fairly not that difficult to integrate or code, which is mostly due to Socket. And we have the similar thing on the trading as well, where like when you deposit, you can deposit from any chain and you do that. And then you get yield and then you can collect it. Let me collect mine.
Honest,
Uh,
honest farmer. All right, let's get into the.
and one other thing is like inside the chain, as you seen, like I did the claiming, it was gasless. So that is one other thing we did, which is like in the chain, everything is gasless. Like there is no gas or anything like that on the chain, and we pay for all the gas.
Yeah, so yeah, you subsidize the cost for to post or
Yeah.
yeah, you have to post the data on L1. So I assume you just
Yeah, yeah. So it's also like this, no? Like we have a smart contract wallet on the chain. So everybody he's kind of like account abstracted.
Mhm.
So we use zero dev and every single person, like you can see over here, I have a smart wallet and everything happens over there. So it just makes it like very easy. Like if I have to do like something inside the chain, I don't have anything like approvals or any of those things. And we mostly like batch transactions. Like 4 or 5 things get done like in a single thing.
Mhm.
So it makes the user experience like a really good
Yeah,
thing over. Yeah.
that's really good. That's sweet. All right, let's see the trading product now.
So trading is yeah, this is trading.
I saw you recently hit 300 million of cumulative volume, so
Yes.
congratulations. So that's
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's on polynomial chain. Yeah, we just hit like a decent number. Let's trade something new. What should I trade? I don't know.
gold.
Let's do Bitcoin. Huh?
I see you're already long on ETH, so okay.
Yeah, this is my testing account,
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
just keep it like that. So this is like a one-time thing where you need to like sign a session key. So after you enable a session key, then you don't need to like sign any message, and then you can now like pick any asset, like let's say move, and then you can just long, and then it just gets done. And here also we have like a small incentive program with like an OP, so the fees kind of get covered off sort of thing. And I think my internet is a bit laggy, and the order gets placed and you can see over here, and then that's it. Like then you have a
Yeah, pretty smooth. What's the one like the funding rates like? Because I see you have like you do offer leverage as well,
yeah. I
and
mean, depends on the asset. Like move is 2%. I mean, funding rates are how perp markets work, right? Like currently, funding rates are decent. Like it's
yeah,
18% for ETH, BTC 13%. So it's pretty good now. But it you can see over here how the funding is over time. It sometimes becomes very aggressive.
yeah.
Uh, like the market, like I think like few weeks back it went to 26. So it's been pretty good on BTC at least. So yeah.
Okay. And what about like one of the things I had when trying to trade on chain is there is exactly because of like block times and everything. So there might be a small delay in in the actions that you take, and that's painful when you're doing big leverage market, or stop losses, for example, have can have big slippage. How do you
Yeah.
deal with that?
Yeah, so for us, like what we do have is like to since the our LP pool is so to protect our LPs, we kind of have this thing called delayed orders. And what essentially happens is when you place a trade, it doesn't happen instantly. You first make an on-chain commitment, and then the order gets executed after like 2, 3 seconds. So there will be a small delay always. But so it is like a problem for users, but to make up for it, what we have is like low slippage. Like you can compare it with centralized exchanges, and you can see the slippages are like really low. It's like 0.1%
Yeah.
slippage. Like that is how we like counteract it. But because that's like an inherent thing you need to have when you are working with an AMM was an order book. So it's like a to and fro at the moment. But what we will have in the future is we'll be combining the AMM that we have at the moment with an order book. So you can like do it both ways. So somebody can actually take your counter side, take the small risk and do it.
Okay. Okay, I get you.
Primarily, it's more of like slippage versus it's always a balancing act between slippage and like how fast you want to do it. So
Where's this delay coming from? Like, are you executing all those orders, or like, is it an open market?
yeah, it is an open market. Earlier, for the first 1, 2 weeks, we were executing the orders. Afterwards, it's now like so many bots. It's a little bit like MEV. So whoever executes it first gets like a small tip. I can show you an example. Let's say take this trade, this move trade which I did here. Uh, this 0.05, right? And this order was executed from 0.92, and this 0.92 he got like 15 cents for executing this order. So
Okay.
the this is a bot which is like executing it. It is not us or anything. It is quite hard to, very competitive to run a bot.
Okay. And if I'm
So
a
which is good for the user because everybody is competing to find you the best deal. So,
yeah,
but
obviously.
yeah, there
So
is a small
so
tip.
you had money in your account already. If I'm a new user, do I have to is the kind of like the action similar to how you deposit on the chain?
Yeah,
Like
it's exactly the same. You
where?
come, you click here and you have deposit and then you just approve. And since this approval is on base, you need to have an approval. But
Mhm.
otherwise, like you approve and then it just deposits the
Okay, so
same.
you can it also works if you have the money on like a different L2, like I can just bridge similar to how you deposit on Polychain.
Yeah, right now this is on base, like as you can see,
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
on base
So
and
you can
then
select where from.
yeah,
And
and it
and you
just
deposit to your smart account, right? Your smart wallet, smart contract wallet.
yes, yes. So essentially what it does is it bridges to the polynomial chain, moves it into the smart contract wallet of the user, and then creates a new trading account for the user, and then deposits that money as margin in the trading account. So it's doing like 4 or 5 steps, but we
Okay.
just
So theoretically, if I have some money on Arbitrum or on Base, I can in a few minutes be
yeah,
trading.
that's what I did now. Like I
Yeah,
just deposited
that's
money from
that's really nice because yeah, my own chain endeavors some days ago had me waiting for bridge funds to reach the destination chain, the deposit on the app that I wanted to use, and then have and I was just losing money by the minute.
yeah. So you can see over here, right? Like it here it took like a minute.
Yeah, oh, that's pretty sweet. That's pretty
Yeah,
sweet.
it's also like fast because it's more like a mint and bun bridge sort of thing.
Hmm.
So it's relatively faster than similar to like how across and all work. So it's
Yeah,
relatively like very fast. And there is no slippage or anything. So that's also very good.
great. All right. Unless you have anything else to show us on the product side, we can get back to more kind of like higher
I
level.
think that's it. Like there is like a referral program. Some people make money by it. And then there is a VIP program. Like if you trade a lot of volume, your fees decreases over time. These are like standard features for
Yeah.
Perp Texas. But yeah, and then there is a points program. Like I think I
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more like every day you trade, you get
Mhm.
like points for based on the volume you do, and you need to claim every day
Okay. And what
to
can you do
get
with
it.
points?
There is I don't know.
It's like we'll figure it out as we go, kind of thing. Okay.
Yes. Let me just figure out how to stop sharing. Ah, okay.
All right. Perfect. Well, thanks for that showcase. I think that's really useful. Right. So I wanted to get on some other part of the discussion. You mentioned earlier during the demo that you're giving like OP rewards traders from a grant that you got from OP. I want to get a little bit into that in terms of the funding you have received from Optimism, the collective, and in terms of the support in the broader sense of the term. Whereas that is, if you had the support you felt you needed or you wanted, or where in that area the collective could do better in terms of builder support. Would it be more marketing? Would it be more biz dev? Apart from funding, right?
I think it's a tricky question because I know like it's very hard to run a DAO also. For us, we were one of the first apps to deploy on Optimism, so we were part of the Grand Zero of Optimism. I think they gave us like 900K OP at that time when OP was 50 cents or something. But that was like a good thing. Like we never thought like protocols got airdrop or something because for us it was more like an airdrop, right? And we've been using it to incentivize all over our protocols over time, and I think it is like over almost. And when it got over, we applied for a grant like very recently in the last cycle, and we got like a 450K OP grant. And I think it has like some metrics that we need to hit and all those kind of things, which I think are like really good. And generally speaking, I like how it is structured, where we do something. If what we did is like good, then like you get like a grant. Uh, it is much better than going and asking. And is there a sound coming?
No.
No. So it is much better than going and asking for a grant for my protocol. So that part is a bit tricky, right?
Mhm.
And so I feel like that part is good because where we do something, we show the output, and then you use it as way to measure, and then you give us a grant sort of thing, right? Like it's a little bit like a VC firm, but without any stake or something like that. So I feel like that is a better way.
Well, theoretically, and Christoph can weigh in more on that. Like theoretically, I think that was the spirit of retro funding. Like you do the
Yeah.
thing, you do something good, you show it, and you get funding. But I know like Christoph, and I'll let him weigh in on that. Like retro funding is tricky, and like Christoph has been a badge holder, and so he's been pretty involved in like assessing and voting and allocating to projects. And from what I understand, like it's just tricky. Whereas if you go for a grant in the proper way, you say, hey, this is what I want to do. This is the money I need to do it, and you get the grant. It's a bit more straightforward for the people reviewing. But I want to hear Christoph's thought on that.
Yeah, so like I'm I'm happy that you're saying what you're saying, but like I'm wondering, how do you see the predictability of the retro funding? Because like it's been changing a lot, especially last year, and I'm wondering how do you plan for that in your product? Like, how do you see retro funding in 2025? Do you expect to receive something? Like, how are you planning for that?
I mean, I treat it the same way as I treat my trades, very low expectations. If it comes, I'm happy. And I mean, we don't like put it into a roadmap or anything. We are building whatever we are building, and it's more like uh, I think like giving incentives is like running ads. If you don't have a good product, like it doesn't matter. If you have a good product, it just makes the thing accelerate a bit more faster, right? And I don't think you can do anything to counterfeit product market, like fake product market fit, right? So, and building in crypto for a long time, I know that nobody's good at predicting if a product is good. And you can say afterwards that, oh, this product did good because they did X, they did Y, but nobody really knows. And so I think like the only thing that it helps is like if you make it and it is a good product, and then if it is like showing signs of like high retention and all, like even for this new product, we started putting OP only after we saw like we were tracking retention of users, and when we saw like the retention was above a certain level, so we know for a fact that these many people come, these many people will stay, and like that's how we predict like internally. But the issue with grants is you don't want to tell this whole process to the public also, right? It's a bit more like how you want to build your business and all, right? So that part is also there. Yeah.
Do I understand correctly that you are using these grants that you receive from OP to further incentivize usage on your platform?
Yeah. Like in the staking, right? Like I think like around 8% was coming from OP. It obviously dilutes over time. It was much bigger when the TVL was lower, but it helps like it helped the TVL increase up like a lot larger, right? And if we didn't do it with if we didn't have OP, I think it would be the same, but with a longer time frame, right? Like what we could have done in like 4 months, we are able to do it in a month. And I
Okay.
think it's like the good thing about like getting this OP.
And apart from
And
the phase zero grant that you got, have you received any other like round?
Yeah. The 450K, the OP that we got was like just recent.
Mhm.
I don't know what it is called, but yeah, that is the grant. I think the
Retro
recent one.
retro
I think
funding?
it was retro. Yeah.
Yeah, something.
And is there like looking into like Optimism Collective and Optimism General, I'm wondering, is there anything that Optimism Collective could do to support you? Like, is there anything you would like the collective to do, or any initiative that you would like the collective to launch? Like, how do you see the collective from your perspective?
I think like there were like a lot of things that didn't make sense, but they have been fixed, I think, over time. Like for example, there has been like I remember like RPGF given to like 25 banklesses, and there was a bankless for every language. Like I don't think that makes any sense. I think in general, like you should give it to products and which kind of like has a direct impact. And those who don't have direct impact, they should actually talk to the products, I think. And in a perspective like for us like we kind of have directly like we give sequencer revenue to OP, right? It is like a little bit more measurable. I think that would be like a good way to like structure things. And a lot of times like if you are a chain and or like small grants don't often matter a lot. Like it might matter for like some one thing, but I think like recently we got like 450K. I think that is like a good enough amount where we can actually like experiment a lot in crypto and especially in perps and all. So it's more like raising a small round, right? And I think like you don't go to a VC and raise a round if you don't have like things to back it up, right? It should be like that, I think.
And I'm wondering because we are speaking a lot about retro funding, but apart from retro funding,
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is also like the token house grants, and especially in the season 7 that we are just entering. Uh, season 7 intent is whole like solely focused on increasing TVL in the super chain. So, were you considering applying for those grants? Like, do you follow those initiatives? How do you see it?
Uh, we follow them, but it's a bit hard to get. So we are like currently we're happy with what we got, and we're going to implement
I'm
it.
wondering why do you feel that it is hard to get? Like what is challenging in this in those programs?
I think it's also like a lot of effort, right? Like to apply it, to keep track of it, all that things are a little bit effort. But the truth is, I am not the best into like knowing about all the details because my co-founder deals with it. But things I can say is like we were like we you have to spend like dedicated time like filling the applications, all that kind of stuff, which I think is fine because it's actually worth the output. So I think over time, like we do apply for whatever we see as an opportunity, and some of it we get, some of it we don't get. I think like once in a while, like we got like 40K OP sometime in like the start of the year or something. I think that also was like good. So over time, like it has been like very good. But I would say like other than grants, one thing that can be like good is like marketing support, as you said. I think Solana does this very well. Like you can see like whenever like something launches, like the Solana Twitter like launches it, right? Like I mean that has like a way more reach than everyone else and their whole team. Like talks about it, all that things. I think that drives adoption. But that is more of an Ethereum thing. Like in Ethereum, we don't do that for anyone. But I think that approach is a little bit changed. I think base is a little bit different over there. But I think like that collectively pushing something, I think that would be like very impactful long term.
Yeah, but can you elaborate a bit more on that? Like, what exactly would you like to see? Like, what would be beneficial for you on the marketing front? Like, what kind of support would you be looking for?
I think since it's money, right? Like biggest issue for a user, even though like code is like readable, all that kind of stuff is that user don't trust, right? And the trust factor comes like if let's say I tweet let's say we have a new product launch and we tweet it, and if let's say Optimism retweets it or Arbitrum or anybody who is like a big brand value retweets it, it's kind of saying like, okay, these guys are not scammers, right? And I guess for us, Optimism can say because we've been working with them for like 2, 3 years, right? And that goes a long way because like a lot of market participants are new, and those people want someone to like tell it, right? And in a way, like for a lot of projects like raising money, all those things all go into that direction, right? Like we initially raised money just because we can afford an audit, and I didn't have enough money but then we ended up raising like a little bit more. But yes, that's kind of how like I even initially thought about raising as well, right? Like you want the user to be there and hopefully not get hacked, or like, be sure that whatever funds you put here does exactly what you want it to do, that kind of things, right? And the rest of it, I think, like is on the product, right? Like to create a flywheel, to make sure they stay, that's all on us. I don't think that should be the responsibility of Optimism or any grants thing. Yeah.
And I would like to dig into that because, like, another thing that I'm super curious about, you mentioned audits. Like, what are the things that we could support builders with? Like, now thinking about, the builder perspective, and if there is a new team that wants to build something on Optimism or on Superchain or anywhere else, like, what are the things that builders need that we could support them with that would make their life easier and make their journey from idea to launch product easier? From your perspective, like, what are the things that you were struggling the most with?
I think for us, when we decided to, like, I'll talk from the perspective of chain than like the product, because both are like different playbooks.
Mhm.
Uh, for the chain, I think like uh, I like this quote from Patrick Collison. It's like all problems are people problem, and it's like that. Like a lot of times, it takes a lot of time to get something done. Like for example, like to decide a RAS, to decide a bridge, like you kind of talk to so many bridges. Like it takes a lot of time to like get those things sorted. And some of them, like it would be good to like have like a standard playbook over time. That I think is happening, but yeah, that is the part where I think like we spend a lot of time. I don't know how you guys, grants can be supported, but I will just say problems. And so that took a lot of time. I think like for us, like few months. Then nowadays, I think like we rely on conduit. So on the RAS side, so maybe like if a RAS provider or anything is like you can subsidize them. I think that is a good way to offer grants, right? If you like subsidize like good teams and like you think are like good, if you make their operational cost lower, that is a good way. Like we have route scan, for example, for the block explorer. So giving a grant to projects like that makes like a like net cost for us decreases a lot, right? And that decreases overhead a bit. I think that is good. And another thing which I say is like, which you said about, which is like predictability. If it is more, it would be good. But some people like it would be good to have it, but I am not fighting for it, but it is good to have those kind of stuff. And so these are the main stuff, right? Like in terms of the chain, that's it. Like you can deploy a chain very easily, but to make it like a successful one, that is quite hard. And mm, yeah,
Apart
then
from
on the normal product side, I think like auditing help. I think there are some things, right? I think OP has something with Sherlock or something like that, where you get like auditing cost decrease. But I think it's for like only certain providers, and it would be good to have like uh, all the auditors or like have a way of like doing it with more people. But I think those are the main things I can think of out of my mind.
It's more about, on top of the funding, it's like awareness, providing like lending legitimacy in a way, and ensuring users, or not ensuring, but talking about products or things being built on Optimism does kind of lend legitimacy in the sense that, if the chain is talking about them, then it means that they must be safe to use, let's say, and they're not scammers, as you put it.
Because one thing I noticed is like it's extremely hard to onboard new people into your chain, right? Like it's not like we even have the keys to the chain. Like it's like that's the thing, right? Like it's extremely hard to like it was much easier to onboard people even today, right? Like the best place to onboard people is Ethereum mainnet, right? If you have a decent app, you will get like a billion TVL, like without like putting a lot of effort. Like there is also like not a lot of people trading on mainnet as well. Then it's easier to do on Arbitrum, and then it's like and any other chain, right? So if you can decrease the trust required to go to a new L2, I think that is the best thing that a super chain or any collective can do, right? Like they are, this product is in this collective, then they are good. And
Yeah, I
yes.
mean, I've always
Yeah.
felt like that, like for everything. Like, if you're building something on Ethereum, like the friction for a user to come to Ethereum, it's way less than coming to an app on a member of the superchain. Simply because like the steps required to get there are more, not necessarily the clicks that you have to click, but rather the leaps in understanding that you have to have, right? A new user will come, will deposit some money on Coinbase, Binance, wherever. Maybe they withdraw with Ethereum. But to know that I'll withdraw to Ethereum, then I'll bridge to this L2 and use this app and maybe stake them there and be in the DAO. It's like, it's too many niches in for a new user to kind of like dive into.
I mean, on that thing, I feel like UX is like we do, though we have these things where like you can deposit from any chain and all. My understanding of how I and people who I know operate is more like if they can make money or they can get value or any sort of value, they will click like 1,000 buttons or whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of how our industry is. And I know people who, I mean, I remember during the NFT run, like where I stayed up till 4 o'clock in the morning just to go there, press a button and be like, oh, I didn't mint it, and then went back to sleep, right? And I think that's the same for all of us, right? And I think the whole UX thing is a bit overdone, I think. But I do think the trust minimization is a big factor, right? And
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. Like I'm also, I'm from the generation that used to compile their own kernel to, to use Linux. So like for me, the having to click a few more times is not an excuse, but this trust gap, and the thing that I need to actually, especially with as many of rack pools that we have in crypto, being able to trust that yes, I can actually deposit my funds to this app and this team is legit and they are less likely to rag me than random people on the internet. This is, I think that's very, like really spot on. One of the main takeaways that I have from this discussion.
I mean, if you think about it, that is exactly what Pump Fund did, no? It's basically like removed the trust in the new token, right? You kind of are okay with a random kid now launching a token. It's kind of very similar what Uniswap also did, right? Like initially when it came, like that there is liquidity, and I think that's kind of how we are, right? Like we are building a bunch of these uh like trust minimized systems.
Yeah. No, 100% agree. As someone who tries using things on chain, one of the things I look at is like, can I trust this thing? Like, not necessarily from the code perspective, but also like, who are the people building it? Like, do they have a track? Like, should I put my money there?
I
So
mean, the truth, what you say makes sense, really. I can read code, right? Like I can read code, but have I ever read code in anything I've used in the last 1 year? No, probably not.
Yeah.
I just press
Yeah,
buttons.
you don't want to be that kind of person. I want to use an app that for whatever reason, like it's trading, it's staking, whatever. I don't want to have to, dig through their GitHub first. I want to be able to, okay, I've seen
Nowadays,
it on Optimism's Twitter, for example, retweeting, hey, so that should mean that they're legit. And it's always like, being part of L2Beat's team, we have this culture of like, don't trust, verify. It shouldn't necessarily extent, but if someone's talking about it, you shouldn't necessarily assume that, oh, they must have done their due diligence. Otherwise, you create these very
I
big.
mean, that is something you guys do very well, right? Like you guys talk about the risk. Like I think I understood like in the early version of L2Bit, like you had these diagrams at the bottom, no? Where you show like how it is. So that things were epic. Like I used to be like, oh, this is how it really worked. Because that diagram was not even in the documentation of the thing. So it's like that level of detail is very good. And this new like badges on the top, those things are also pretty good.
Yeah,
Those diagrams used to be our secret sauce, really, and it's a secret skill of our research team to be able to digest the gist of the chain into this simple diagram.
Yeah.
Okay, we are reaching the end of our planned time, so I've got one question at the very end about the future. Like, what are your plans? What are your expectations? What do you want to achieve in this 2025?
2025. So our goal is has always been we need to make currently the best perp dex that is there. At least not a perp dex. We want to make a perp exchange which doesn't suck. And there have been many ways to do it. Like you could go like a little bit more to the centralized side, like Hyperliquid, but we are like a little bit like in the middle and with an L2. So we want to actually reach like a good enough volume where we are like comparable to centralized exchanges, and it's growing every day into few billions a day, in tens of billions. But yes, that is our main goal, to reach a level where it is there. And part of it is technical, part of it relies on the infra stack, like some things which I think can be improved when OP does an upgrade and all those kind of stuff. Some of it are on us, so it's I think it's going to take a little while till we figure it out, but I think like we'll probably figure it out. Yeah.
and we hope you do.
Yeah,
All right. Any closing remarks, Gautham?
Yeah, like if anybody's listening, like you do try out Polynomial. If you have any issues, just come to our Discord or ping me on Twitter. I will do customer support as long as I can.
That's the founder culture, right? I do everything. Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time. I will be direct and say that although I knew about polynomial and I've kind of like browsed a little bit, I didn't know exactly, like at least on the polynomial chain part, like the staking liquidity pool. And you do offer some attractive APR, so I might indulge with some of my money. But yeah, it was a really great chat. Thank you for doing this, and hope you achieve your 2025 goals.
Yes,
yeah,
thank
and
you.
hopefully we can get back to this discussion in a year from now and reflect on what worked, what didn't.
Yes, sir.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you, guys. Have a
Thank
nice
you,
day.
and thank you,
Thank you
everyone,
very much.
for tuning in.
See you.